Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Trollheim with your host, Rabbi Anibal. So happy to be here with all of you once again, taking a little bit of our time for this afternoon to study Torah. So welcome for being there. And welcome Ariel Lee, welcome Lori, welcome Brenda, welcome Erin. That's okay, Erin. You've been away from the class, but you've been coming to synagogue. So there, you compensate one with the other. Very happy to have you back. Welcome, David. Yeah, David, Brenda. Okay, if there's anybody else there, please say hello in the chat. We always like to know who is on the other side and to see who is sharing this classroom so we can all study together. Welcome, Julia. Welcome to the class. Shelly Chochinov. Hola. Hola. By the way, Shelly, hola is with an H. Hola without an H is a wave. The wave of the oceans. That's with an hola. O-L-A. And hola with an H, H-O-L-A, is hello. Just remember, hello starts with an H. Hola starts with an H. It's coming from, they even sound similar. Hola, hello. Coming from probably the same root, right? But that's one. OLA is like the ola, the wave in the ocean. A little bit of Spanish class. A little bit of Spanish class in the middle of a Torah class, right? So welcome everyone. We're going to study Parsha Nasso. So many good things in this Parsha. Some people make the mistake sometimes to get lost into the counting in Parshat Nasso, because there is a lot of things that repetitious things that happen when, and we talk about the importance on the individual versus the group, and that's all good. But that is the most famous part of the Parsha, but it has many other good things. Welcome, Randy. Like we have the Birkat Kohanim in this week's Parsha, the priestly blessing. Let me move this out of the way. Right there. Priestly blessing is on this Parsha. So, some cool things that we have. And I'm sure if you connect with us on Shabbat morning, you're going to learn even more. Rabbi Carney is going to be teaching from the Bima this Shabbat. Welcome, Elkanah. Welcome to the class. We are going to give a couple more minutes for people to join, and then we are going to dive into the content of this week's Parsha. That's, We've been reading the same Parsha during weekdays for 2 weeks now, because remember, last Shabbat was interrupted by Shavuot. So it was kind of weird, the cycle of the reading of the Torah this week. Longest Parsha, I'm not sure if the longest Parsha, Erin, it might be. It has a very long part, which is all the present from all the leaders of the tribes. They will bring the offerings to the tabernacle. And the funny thing is they're all the same. So it's a very, very long section, but it's all the same. So if you want to have a bar mitzvah, just do it on Nasso, so you get to impress your audience. Oh, this guy's been reading forever. Yeah, but it's all the same. So yeah, that's the thing. But it is pretty long, but it's not difficult because there's a lot of repetitions in this one. That's what I mean. Yeah. So for this class, we're going to study, I think depends on how much time we have, 2 or 3 topics of this week's Parsha. So let's see how much time we have. I know sometimes I plan. Welcome, Amparo. I plan, and then I always run out of time. This is something you should know. I almost never teach everything that I want to teach. There's always things at the end of my slides, but that's okay. I use it usually the next year. That will be the first part of next year. So I learned to do that so I won't beat myself for not teaching what I wanted to teach. So I've been very disciplined to start every year with whatever I couldn't teach the year before. So this is exactly what is going to happen this class. The beginning of the class is what I didn't have time last year to teach. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So I think we are all here, or most of us are here. So let's begin with the class. I'm going to bring... Yeah. So by the way, if you guys, if you want to study more about the Torah and all these parts, you know that all my classes are in our archive. There is a playlist on YouTube, in the Shari Zedek YouTube. That is, if you go to YouTube, you know, when you search for SZ Winnipeg, and that will take you to our channel. That should be the first thing you're going to see after you hit enter and you search. So SZ Winnipeg, one word, and that will be our channel. And then from there, if you go to playlists, there are very different sections, and you can go, one is Torah L'chaim, and you will have all the archive for all the classes, so you can play non-stop. If you play a playlist, it will play non-stop classes. If you want to do that, I don't know why you would like to do that, because I wouldn't be able to do that. But yeah, if you want to do that, you can do it, and you can study for hours and hours and hours and hours non-stop. So yeah, Brendan, that I know that I don't usually teach during the summer. We take a break, and then we see each other again around the time right before the high holidays, so we can get ready for the next year. But we still have a few more weeks of studying all together. Okay, so let's go to this week's Parsha. Welcome, Holly. Welcome, Holly. Welcome to the class. So this week's Parsha, I want to talk about, because I remember I mentioned that there is lots of offerings mentioned in this Parsha. Things that they were brought, that were offered to the tabernacle. So now we have a little bit of the concept of the terumah, the offerings, or these gifts that people will have the opportunity to bring. Back in the day, it was to the Kohen, right? To the priest. In this day and age is what you donate to the synagogue, for example, or to a school, or to a hospital. Things that you don't have the obligation, but you want to. You want to give something. So it's a very holy act when we bring donations. And this is something that I learned when I came here to Canada from South America. There is I don't know how to say it, there is a much better understanding of donation in North America than there is in South America. South America, there is I will say, a lot more of time offering. People offer their time more. But here in North America, I guess time, we don't have time. So we give more of our money, if you know what I mean. It's just, I don't know if it's cultural or thing, but it's, yeah. So there is all this concept of sometimes we donate our time, sometimes we donate our money, but it's all part of our terumot, our offering, our gifts that we give to others. Sometimes our gift is our resources, sometimes our gift is our time. Both equally valuable, both equally important. That's why I will say in every society, it is important that some people contribute with their time and some people contribute with their money, because both are necessary. We give what we have. We give what we have. And we live in a society that sometimes people have more time than money. And another societies that some people have more money than time, because they use all the time to make the money. Maybe one day we should talk about that. Okay, so the Torah is talking about the teruma, and how should we understand the concept of the teruma, the concept of these donations, from a theological point of view, if you want? What is God saying about what we give to others? So this parsha has a lot to say about that. I will read now from Book of Numbers, chapter 9, verses 9 to 10. And it says, "And every portion from any of the holies that the children of Israel bring to the Kohen is the priest. Kohen is the priest. So every donation that the children of Israel bring to the priest shall be his. A man's holies shall be his, and what a man gives to the Kohen shall be his." You know what is interesting here? Who is the subject in this verse? Who is the his? Read it again. Take a minute. Look at the screen. Read it again. Of course, because of the context, we can suppose that when he said, everything that you give to the Kohen shall be his, that his is the Kohen. Okay? But grammatically, it's not clear. We are making an assumption based on context. But technically, it's not clear who is the recipient of this donation. Do you understand about that? Why the repetition about the Kohen? It's because it's two different verses, okay? And if the Torah, instead of saying Kohen, will say him, it will get even more confusing. So it's okay that the Torah repeats the word Kohen. But what it is confusing, and for a good reason, is the word shall be his. Because here we are seeing a duality. And I think the Torah is being vague on purpose, because it is not clear who is the recipient of a donation, who is the beneficiary of a donation. If you give something to somebody else, the Torah is implying here that both the giver and the receiver are getting a benefit from that donation. You understand that? So when you make a donation to the synagogue, for example, the synagogue enjoys the donation, but also you enjoy, or you get to enjoy the joy that the giving gives you. So every time we bring an offering, the receiver and the giver both get benefit from that action. And this is the beauty. And sometimes because we assume, we try to understand context, but take a second and just read it for what it is. It's not clear who the beneficiary is, and it's because it is both. It is both. So, Aaron, it's the feel good about the giving. It's the feel good about the giving. And also sometimes, and let me put an example here, because here is clearly talking about the temple, right? About our offerings to the Kohanim, to the priest, and to the temple back in the days. All the donations that they were giving to the temple, it also came back to you, because you were a user of the temple. If every time you came back in the day to the temple, you will see that the temple is clean and everything is working, and the Kohanim have pretty clothes and everything is functional, it's thanks to the donations. So every time we donate to a cause, it also comes to us in some way. The goodness that they do comes back to you. Let's say that you donate to the hospital. We all use hospitals sooner or later, right? And it's so it always comes back. Even if you give it to us to another organization, the fact that they are solving a problem in society, it also comes back to you. And that is what's so important for us to get the habit of donating. And again, I will say it again, donating either our money or our time or both. Okay? So let's see what rabbis have to say about this. Listen to this, because this is a beautiful story from the Midrash that explains how is that you can have more than one beneficiary from your teruma, from your offering, from your gift. Listen to this. The following story is told about Rabbi Tarfon. He was very wealthy, but was not in the habit of giving substantially to the poor. One time Rabbi Akiva said to him, "Would you like me to be your agent in buying a town or two?" "Certainly," replied Rabbi Tarfon. I guess he wanted to make, a little business on real estate. So I said, "Okay, sure, go ahead." So Rabbi Tarfon then brought 4,000 gold dinars, which Rabbi Akiva took, and instead of going to buy towns, he distributed that money to the poor. Sometime later, Rabbi Tarfon sought out Rabbi Akiva and said to him, "Okay, where are the towns that you bought for me?" Rabbi Akiva took him by the hand and brought him to the Beit Midrash, to the study house, and brought over a child with a book of Psalms in his hand. The child read Psalm 112. "Happy is the one who fears the Lord, who is devoted to his commandments," until he got to the verse, "He gives freely to the poor. His tzedakah lasts forever. His horn is exalted in honor." Rabbi Akiva said, "You see, this is the property which I bought for you." Rabbi Tarfon hugged Rabbi Akiva and said, "You are my teacher and my leader. You are my teacher in wisdom and my leader in derech eretz, proper conduct." Then Rabbi Tarfon liberally gave more money. So, Jewish education, Jewish real estate, and absolutely. I read once, I think it was an article by one of the Chabad rabbis, not from Winnipeg, but one of the Chabad rabbis who was sent a letter to his congregation regarding donating a Sefer Torah scroll. Because it's very common in Judaism, when you want to make a big donation to the shul, what you do is you buy a Torah and you donate the Torah to the shul. But the thing is, how many Torahs do you think a shul actually needs? There is a limit, because there is a point that we can't even put another scroll in the Aron Kodesh, in the Holy Ark. So the rabbis will say, if you really want to honor somebody, instead of donating a Torah to the shul, that we already have a lot, support Jewish education. And he was saying that the impact is way more than donating a Torah scroll to the shul. And I just told you, when you wrote Jewish education equals Jewish real estate, you kind of reminded me of that. Erin, you have a question here. It says, "Is this how the Kohanim somehow received the Korban Pesach?" Well, Erin, the Kohanim, the priest, by law, and this is in the Torah, they will receive regularly part of the sacrifices. So not all the sacrifices were completely consumed by the fire. Those were only what we call the Olah. Unfortunately, the translation is Holocaust. There were sacrifices that were completely burned on the altar. That's why what happened during the Second War with the Nazis was called Holocaust, because of all the people that they were completely burned but it's coming from the Torah, the concept of this sacrifices completely burnt on the altar. But there were other sacrifices that people would present in the temple, that not everything will be consumed by the fire. The rest of the meat will be part will be for the person coming to the temple with the animal, and the other part will be, by law, for the priests. So the priest had a built-in system to guarantee that they will have food, and eventually also terumot, other gift that people wanted to bring them. So it was a pretty sweet situation that they had, the Kohanim. Not so much the Leviim, the Levites, that they will rely on people's charity. And some of the Levites were actually very poor because they didn't have this mandatory system to constantly bring gifts for them. So they were in a very delicate situation, let's put it that way. But the Kohanim, they used to receive a lot of things. And it looked like historically some priests were more popular than others, because when you bring the gifts to the priest, you can choose to whom to give that gift. So also, I guess, it was probably like a popularity contest among the priests to be the ones receiving all these gifts, right? So, but let's go back to the story and how, you can see how all the money that Rabbi Tarfon donated, it eventually came back, because a stronger Jewish nation is also good for him. It's something for us that we need to understand, how every time that we donate, the benefits come back to us. Because a better society is also better for us. Now, in this text, and this is what I wanted to say, look at the way it ends. It said, Rabbi Tarfon hugged Rabbi Akiva and said two things. Number one, you taught me wisdom. Okay? And we all want wisdom. Wisdom is always good, because when you receive wisdom, the first thing what happens is you are not going to make mistakes. Usually the people sharing the wisdom with you are the people who already made the mistakes. So now that they made the mistakes, they can tell you what to avoid, so you won't make the mistakes. Of course, I can always learn by making my own mistakes, but I will be honest with you guys. I rather learn from your mistakes than my mistakes. It's less painful. Is faster learning, and so forth. So here, Rabbi Tarfon is thanking Rabbi Akiva. So because now Rabbi Tarfon learned how to not make a mistake. So he learned in a way that it didn't involve making a mistake first, so then you learn from your mistakes, which was wonderful. But then he's teaching us a new word, which is derech eretz. It has different translations. One translation is proper conduct, and the other translation is the way it is. This is the way it is. You know that when sometimes somebody, it happens to me, for example. Let me give you my example. I came to North America, to Canada specifically, from South America. I was born in Argentina, then I moved to Chile. And there are things, expectations, social expectations, that they are different in South America than in North America. Things that you just don't do. Or things that you do because that's the way it is. Everybody does that because it's culturally appropriate. In Judaism, that kind of thing is called the derech eretz, the thing that is expected from you to do. You shouldn't, this is the funny thing, you shouldn't wait for anybody to teach you, but you should know it. It's not something you learn at school, but you should know it anyway. That is derech eretz. It's something that is expected in society. It's like you go to a restaurant and You have to tip. You have to tip the server. It's not written anywhere. It's not something that you're necessarily going to learn it at school, but it's expected. Everybody does it. So that is a perfect example of derech eretz. It's something that is proper to do because it's part of the norms of society, right? Like when, if you enter to a room holding the door for the next person, it's also derech eretz. Do you have to do it? No, you don't have to do it, but it's a proper way of doing it. It's proper conduct. It's the way it is. You hold the door for the next person. So, what Rabbi Tarfon is saying here, and this is also something that because it's not part necessarily of the school curricula, you should also be thankful to have somebody in your life to bring this to your attention. Because by learning those little things, you are going to be a more functional member of society. So in this case, what Rabbi Tarfon learned, that giving tzedakah, giving charity, is part of derech eretz, is part of the expectations of society. Do you have the obligation to give to charity? No, it's not an obligation, but it's proper conduct. It's like holding the door open. It's like tipping a server. So Rabbi Tarfon, I guess because he was very wealthy, who knows, maybe he lived in a bubble. He never had an opportunity to understand society and to learn things that they are proper. And my goodness, every time that I travel to a new place, I try to figure out these things. I don't know if it happens to you guys. When you go on a vacation or you go to Europe and think, you want to know what is expected for you to do there. Because maybe there are things, this is also part of the derech eretz, that they are different from whatever you will do in Canada or the United States. Right? And I will tell you a story once that, there was one family from Winnipeg that went to Spain. I think it was in Valencia. And they were at a restaurant and they wanted to know what was the tipping tradition in Spain. Because sometimes you don't want to give too little or too much, right? And just by doing this, they happened to, because they wanted to figure out that they were in Spain. Who speak English here? Because I have a question for, he was talking to all the tables. Anybody speaking English here? And one family said, yeah, we do. And then I said, okay, what is the tradition of tipping here? Okay, they got the answer. I said, where are you from? Oh, we are from Chile. Where are you from? We are from Winnipeg. I said, Winnipeg, we used to have a cantor in Chile that he moved to Winnipeg. What's his name? His name was Anibal. That was me. And then the other family said, oh yeah, he prepared our son for bar mitzvah in Winnipeg. And they started to talk about me in Spain. Just because they wanted to find out what was the derech eretz in that city. But it's very important when you go to a new place for you to get to know the proper conduct in that place. On the derech, not the derech, okay? Elkanah said you'll feel it more in Asia. In Asia and Africa, for example, there are also different expectations from people. And this is something that everybody has to get familiar with whenever you move to a new place. And Judaism says that is correct. You have to get used to and understand what is proper in your society and do it because you are part of society. Okay, now let's study a little bit more about this. Derech eretz includes everything that flows from the human being's necessity to perfect his destiny and his life, together with his society, through the medium of the earth bounty. Okay, so hence the term is used in reference to earning a livelihood and establishing civic order, and in reference to the path of discipline with manners and refinement that social life require, and to everything that touches upon the development of humankind and civility. So, for example, when you say You have to learn to be polite. That's derech eretz, proper conduct, and things like that. And engaging in derech eretz, developing the habit to be polite and to do things in the proper way, even though it's not mandatory, is good for society. And we have to get in the habit to do it. And yeah. And again, as I mentioned, it could be different in every society, right? And there are other things that even if it's not proper in one society, it doesn't mean that you cannot do it differently. And I will give you a perfect example. Like if you go, let's say I went once, I was invited to do a concert in Mexico. Nobody is on time there. I showed up on time to a rehearsal and everybody was looking at me like I was like for a different planet. It doesn't matter. For me, that's proper. You know, if the rehearsal is at 11 a.m., you come at 11 a.m. Not at 11:45 like some of them came. Because it's there, nobody will tell you anything if you're late. It's part of society because the traffic is so bad that nobody's ever on time. So, yeah, it's different things. So I was saying, sorry for learning good habits. Let's continue. Now, how do we improve our derech eretz? Listen to this. Rabbi Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Judah Hanassi, said, "Excellent is the study of the Torah when combined with a worldly occupation, for toil in them both keeps sin out of one's mind. But study of the Torah, which is not combined with a worldly occupation, in the end comes to be neglected and becomes the cause of sin. And all who labor with the community should labor with them for the sake of heaven, for the merit of their forefathers sustains, for the merits of the forefathers sustain the community, and the forefathers' righteousness endures forever. And as for you, God in such case says, I credit you with a rich reward, as if you yourself had actually accomplished it all." Yeah. Brenda, what do you write? What do you say there? Mañana, tomorrow. Mañana, tomorrow, like in Spanish, you mean? Okay. So, tomorrow. Let's go back this. This is a very interesting thing because now after this, I brought to you this Mishnah for Pirkei Avot because I think it is connected to the study of Rabbi Tarfon, to the story of Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva. What is the connection of the two? You know, Rabbi Tarfon was the one who, according to Rabbi Akiva, wasn't giving enough money and all that. You see, but then you realize that he was the one who didn't have to work because he was wealthy already. So all what he was doing during his life was to study Torah. And because he was never working, he never worked a day on his life, he lost a big part of understanding the world. A big part. And that's why Pirkei Avot said we have to do both. We have to learn Torah, but you also have to work. We need to have a direct connection with society. We cannot live in a bubble. Also, the other way, the other extreme is also bad. Just to work, and to neglect our Torah study. Both are necessary to keep us on track. Both are necessary to develop the proper traits of character. And in the case of Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Akiva was able to teach him that the biggest problem that he has is that, you really never understood the needs of the world because you have no needs. And if you don't get in, if you don't connect with society, so you are missing a big, big, big part. That's why this concept of study of the Torah, which is not combined with a worldly occupation, in the end comes to be neglected and becomes the cause of sin, which is exactly what Rabbi Akiva was talking about Rabbi Tarfon. Now, this is kind of interesting because this comes into direct conflict with the concept of the person or the people who study at the yeshiva 24/7. And that tension existed all along in Jewish history. People who actually disagree with this statement of Pirkei Avot and said, no, some people belong to the Torah Academy and they should not work in anything else, so they can dedicate their lives exclusively to the study of Torah. And there are many other people within Judaism that they disagree with them, and they agree with Rabbi Gamliel that said, no, the best way is to be able to combine both. Okay, and I always thought that many of these people that they study at yeshiva, at least what they do is they study, but they also teach, so they get an opportunity to connect with people. No, many of them, they don't even teach. All they do is to study. But you say, to study for what? For the sake of study. Well, but you study at least to teach it to somebody else. Not necessarily. Some people, all they do is to study and never get a chance to teach it to other people. I don't know what you think, guys. Let me know in the chat what you think about the tension between the two models. The model that said that people should study Torah 24/7 for the sake of studying Torah, and the model that said that it has to be combined with a worldly occupation, to use the words of Pirkei Avot, right? So let me know in the chat what you think, because I think it's very important. I think it's very important. Okay. Erin, you said with some Haredim, yeah. You got it. You got it, Erin. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Now in Israel, it's a big issue. A big issue. That some of them, they said that even serving in the IDF is an interruption to their study Torah, and it should not be done. But if you ask me, it's in direct contradiction with the Mishnah of Pirkei Avot that is that it should be combined with, again, I will use the word of the Mishnah, worldly occupation, right? Yes. Brenda, you're talking about Mexico. Yes, in Mexico, everything is tomorrow. Or in a little, or tomorrow, yeah. It's very common there. But it's, time is relative in Mexico. But I don't blame them, because I've been there. And I know many people, when they go to Mexico, they just go to the resort and they stay there all the time. If you go for a week, 2 weeks, all you do is staying in the resort. City, and you try to drive, you will realize how bad the traffic is. So you can't really do that. It's yeah. Let's continue. Now, Rabbi Ishmael, son of Rabbi Nachman, said, Derech Eretz preceded Torah by 26 generations. This is the meaning of what it is written, to guard the way of the tree of life. That I will show you the verse in a minute. It said, the way refers to Derech Eretz. Afterwards, the tree of life, which refers to the Torah. The verse says there, humankind was driven out, and east of the Garden of Eden were stationed the cherubim and the fiery ever-turning sword to guard the way to the tree of life. Okay? So the way comes first, tree of life comes after. So what happened here, and I talked with you guys about this many times. We studied this when we studied the concept of counting of the Omer. Why do we have to prepare ourselves for 49 days before we receive the Torah? It's almost like you have to prepare yourself for 49 days before you even qualify to receive the Torah. This is part of the same concept. Why do we have to do that? Because even, the Midrash says that derech eretz, the proper way, the thing that you should know even, without anybody telling you, because it's obvious, right? Manners should be obvious. It metaphorically, it says it came 26 generations before the giving of the Torah. What does it mean? That you don't really need the Torah to understand what is proper. You don't need the Torah to learn to be polite, right? And I think the Midrash here says it beautifully. The Midrash says the same thing by saying, why you don't need the Torah to learn to be polite? Because learning to be polite came 26 generations before the Torah. Right? And it brings this beautiful verse that says to guard the way to the tree of life. So basically, even in the Garden of Eden, we learn about the way, the proper way. And from the beginning of creation, we should have known that. This also came during the time of the flood, when God punished society. And then you may ask, what right did God have to punish society if the Torah was not revealed? So they didn't know the law. They didn't know the details of the law. But they should have known derech eretz. They should have known that it's not proper to steal from somebody else and so forth, and to kill somebody else. That is kind of obvious. So derech eretz, if you think about it, there are things that they are kind of obvious when you look around. Erin, what about Musar? When Musar came in, I'm not an expert in Musar, and we had, this past Saturday we have with Steve Moskovich that he talked about Musar. So if you want to learn more about Musar, I would recommend to play that video from YouTube. Yeah. Now, let's continue a little bit more with this. Upon reflection, we will see that character traits and attributes are an introduction to the Torah and the primary foundation of the essence of a person, without which a person is not worthy at all of Torah. Understand? This is what I was saying. Derech eretz, being a good person and being polite is a prerequisite to accept the Torah. Otherwise, the Torah cannot do much for you. If you don't start doing that work on yourself, on your traits, on your manners, even before you start studying Torah. This is the intent of the rabbis. Derech eretz preceded Torah by 26 generations, for all of the good character traits and attributes are included in derech eretz. They were ingrained in human nature, and for them there is no need for giving of the Torah. The Torah was not given to teach us to be polite. We should know that. The giving of the Torah comes to build on these traits and attributes. So you see, once you get your foundation of the good traits, then yes, the Torah will take you to the next level. So the giving of the Torah came to build on these traits and attributes and to command him to continue to rise heavenward to even higher levels, transcending those which are in the realm of derech eretz. Derech eretz is your foundation. The Torah will take you to the next level, but only if you have that first level that you should build by yourself. Upon reflection, we will see that this code, too, that which is referred to as Derech Eretz, which preceded Torah from Sinai, is a comprehensive system which encompasses the entire man. So, in other words, lack of manners cannot be blamed into, well, I never had a chance to study Torah, because it has nothing to do with the Torah that we read in the synagogue, the Torah that we study. Manners are things that they are part, or should be, part of our nature. The problem is sometimes we suppress that, or we convince ourselves that that's not the way. But most of the time we know by nature, we have instincts of what is proper and what is not proper. Okay? When we do something wrong and somebody will say, oh, that's not kosher. Well, it's a very good word, kosher, because kosher doesn't mean pure. Kosher means proper. Okay? So when you say a kosher conduct, it's a proper conduct. Yeah. Historically, you said, Erin, what was happening 26th century before Matan Torah? That was the creation of the world. Creation of the world. Now, if you will ask, why was the generation of the flood punished if they were never commanded to fulfill the mitzvot? The answer is that there are numerous mitzvot that people must keep based on logic, even if they were not commanded to keep them. Therefore, they were punished. They knew what to do. They knew what to do, but they just, they pretended they didn't know. And God, I have this conversation with my son all the time when he said, oh, I didn't know. And then after I talked to him, you realize that, well, he technically didn't know, but he suspected that something was bad. So I said, why did you do it anyway if you suspected it was bad? It's because since we are little, we learn to not to listen to that voice of consciousness that is part of Derech Eretz. Yeah. Let's see what else I see here in the... we read here. It says, our sages said a person should always observe the Torah and mitzvot, even if for no sake, he will only come to observe for his own. Yeah. Man cannot wear women's clothing, and women cannot wear man clothing. Is in the Torah. Yeah, back in the day, that was part of the society, right? That was part of society. The thing in this day and age, right now is more complicated because many of the clothing that we buy in the store is not marked for specific genders anymore. So in that sense, society is changing. Yeah. Shelley, you said purging of all ways, habits, thoughts to make oneself ready to receive the Torah. Yeah. Sometimes it's purging the old ways. Sometimes it's rediscovering that we always knew that. For many different reasons, we pretended we didn't know. We pretended we didn't know. We should never fool ourselves and stuff like that. Okay, let's go to the next one. I wanted to touch a little bit on the blessing, the Birkat Kohanim, because this is happening. This is so important in Jewish tradition. Is the blessing in the Torah. It's a blessing that we've been using for generation after generation. Every time we have a bar or bat mitzvah, we bless them with this blessing. When we have a wedding, when I have a wedding, I bless the couple with this blessing, with the Birkat Kohanim. You may have heard it in the synagogue, Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha ken yehi ratzon, and so forth. Okay? And it's also important because the Torah says, this is the way where you should bless the people of Israel. So if the Torah says that this is the way it should be done, So that's why we do it. Now, the little trick here is this was a commandment to the priests. God is saying to the priest, hey, priest, when you want to bless the people of Israel, use this formula, right? Well, but now we don't have the temple anymore, so kind of by analogy, we realize, okay, if the priests are not there, and the Torah says that we are all a nation of priests, even if metaphorically, so we learn that this is the proper way to bless people in the Jewish tradition. So I wanted to explore a little bit with you the language of this prayer, this blessing. So it says, thus shall you bless the nation of Israel, speak unto them. May Hashem bless you and safeguard you. Sometimes it's, translated as, may God bless you and keep you, right? In Hebrew is, Yevarechecha Adonai ve'ishmerecha. So may God bless you and protect you. Okay? Lishmor is to protect and protect you. Next, it will say, may God illuminate his countenance upon you and let you find grace. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. The word v'chuneka comes from the word chen. Chen is grace. Grace, at least in Judaism, grace, the word chen, is the attribute of God of giving you something for free, in the sense that you don't deserve it. God will give it to you out of love, not out of obligation. When you deserve something, I have to give it to you because you deserve it. But if you don't deserve it, if I give it to you, it's just because I want to give it to you. So basically here is, may God illuminate you out of grace. Not because you deserve anything, not because your behavior was incredible, but it's because God wants to share God's light with you out of grace. Because God loves you, and there is no other reason needed. No other reason needed. And then the last one, may God lift God's countenance upon you and establish peace for you. Again, it's a lot of talking about God's face here, which is a metaphor, of course, because God doesn't have a face, but it's like it's this light coming upon you and to give you peace. So we are blessing by sending blessings and protecting the blessings. We are blessing by sharing God's light with the recipient of the blessing for free, without any expectations, anything back, or without the recipient deserving this. And at the end, come on, what is the most important thing you can wish to somebody? The most important blessing, the blessing of peace. Because if you don't have peace, you can enjoy anything. You need peace to have the right mindset to enjoy the blessing. So that's why the blessing wraps up with peace. Now, I want to explain a couple of things about this. May God bless you and safeguard you. This is talking about not only may God send you a blessing, but may God protect that blessing so you will have a chance to enjoy it. Can you imagine if God blesses you with you winning the major prize in the lottery? Millions of dollars. What a blessing, right? But if God gives you the money, and that because now you have all this money, you get into terrible habits. You get into drinking, drugs, gambling, and then you cheat on your spouse because now you have money, you have other people around you. Is that really a blessing? That's not a blessing. It looks like a blessing, but it was a curse, because that blessing was not safeguarded. Safeguarded. So basically, it's may God bless you, and may God protect that blessing. So the blessing is going to be enjoyed as a blessing, and it's never going to become a curse. Beautiful wish. Beautiful wish here that God's giving God. And then the other thing, the same thing. And then just receive it for what it is. Don't think God is giving you this because God loves you. Okay? Relax. You don't owe anything to God. And then at the end, and may God give you peace so you can enjoy it. So you won't have anything disturbing the enjoyment of the blessing. And that's what it is. So yes, Julia, it's called Aaronic benediction because the first one who was commanded to bless the people of Israel with this blessing was Aaron, the first high priest. That's why we call it Aaronic benediction, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you so much for tuning in this Torah L'Chaim for this week. And we are going to be singing the Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing, this coming Shabbat at the synagogue. So if you want to listen to the music, you will have a chance to listen to this on this coming Shabbat service. And I'm pretty sure that Rabbi Carney is going to teach a little bit more about it. So don't miss that, okay? So thank you again, everyone. If you missed any part of this class, don't worry. It's going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 Central, okay? 8 Central. And remember, thumbs up to the class. Don't forget, thumbs up. And please subscribe to our channels if you haven't done so you will be notified every time we go live or every time that we upload something new to our channel. So you have to subscribe for that. And thank you so much. Hope to see you all next week. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Be blessed. Stay safe. Hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.